Hello again, anti-novelists and friends. Today we're getting back to character development. We're working on the F card, which is card 6. What is their greatest fear? Physical fear, mental fear, and emotional pain. I think we're just going to do the fears. I don't know that we'll get into pain, but we'll see how far we get. However, before we do that, let's go back to one of Chad's questions about what happened scholastically when he was younger. Remember the idea that there was a science fair project that went awry and maybe that's why he collects the things that he does? What I've done is I've added behind the /1 card a /A. And here's what I'm thinking. Chad had a big failure in the science fair, and that meant he was discouraged from a career in the sciences. So instead, he's hiding in the museum job. That means he is a frustrated scientist. And I've made a note, plot point at his outburst. So I'm thinking because of whatever happened here, he's going to be frustrated and that's going to trigger a character reaction later. But let's go on to the F card. Chad's physical fear. First of all, he's never broken a bone, so he has a fear of serious injury. He was also bitten by a rat as a child because remember he grew up in Peculiar, Missouri, which is kind of a rural little town. So he had to endure rabies vaccinations. That means he has an extreme fear of needles. That's a story thread. I also made myself a note, a family history of what? What could be lurking in his family history that would give him a fear of something physical? So I will circle back to that. Let's go to the next card, his mental fears. His mental fears are that people don't really like him. So he is very much of extreme service, right? We know that he mothers Tara. We know that he is that kind of personality. And he just keeps saying to himself, if I were just good enough. So he's somewhat repressed. He's misdirected his affections to Tara. He uses bravado to cover it. And he's mother henning. So now let's look at this if I'm just good enough idea, and let's look at how we can solve for scene and sequel, and that gives us an advance in the plot. So if we're talking about a scene where he's thinking, if I were just good enough, this becomes a conflict trigger, okay? Conflict triggers are something that drive your story forward. So for example, when Tara leaves the museum and chooses to go away with Branch, Chad snaps because his perception is that she didn't choose him. That leads us to jealousy. So let's make a decision on the tree of conflict about what could happen there. On the one side, if she forgives him, then he's restored and he doesn't have to be worrisome or jealous any longer. However, if she doesn't forgive him for his jealous outburst, he becomes bitter and he becomes a quasi-antagonist, and perhaps he starts to follow a negative character arc. That's how you start to sketch out from the top level of character development down into plot development and meld those two things together so that your character advances. Let's look at the character circle of development. Up at the top, we've got character development. Character development then leads to exploring by that character. That exploration of putting your character through scenarios, thinking through their past, thinking through their personality, reveals the kinds of conflicts that you need to challenge them with. I love how Brandon Sanderson, the author, always says, throw everything you can at them and see how they react. That leads to their struggling. It's the struggle that reveals and drives the story. That drives the plot, and that gets you to growth, either positive or negative character growth, and that brings you back to character development again. It's a continuous cycle that you're always putting your characters through. Ideally, a character goes through one of these cycles in each of the 4 plot points. That's how you move them forward, and that's how you show progression. On the final installment, we've got his response to emotional pain. I've asked the question up top, what is Chad's wound? A character's wound is the thing that they bring into the story that governs how they behave. Because of that wound, what lie does he grow to believe about himself, and why does he believe it? So in the next video, we're going to dive deeper into a character's wound and the lie that they believe because of it, and that's going to help reveal the trajectory that that character arc needs to take in order to have a good story. So I hope this helped with character development. I will see you in the next video, and we will dig deeper into character wounds and the lies they believe. Thanks. I'll see you next time.